trophies. Some win them and some they don't.
And you guys never win anything, right? No.
But there's certain trophies in football that mean a little bit more than the rest. Some trophies that are won exclusively by some of the most talented footballers in the world, and then also by Steven and Zonzi. The Champions League is one of those, and Kylian Mbappe is one of them. So why exactly have they never been matched? A move to Real Madrid seemed like the easiest, most surefire way of Kylian getting his hands on a Champions League trophy. Yet immediately after a move to the Bernabeu, Real Madrid looked weaker, and his former side PSG looked stronger. But is that really true? Is Kylian Mbappe cursed? Yo, listen, man's filming from a different setup today. Apologies on that one. Oh, I should not be doing that to this person's setup, sorry. Green screen vid as well. Editor can go crazy with what's in the background. Oh. Would you like more of those? Let me know if so. And whilst we're at it, like the video. It helps get more eyes on the channel. And ultimately, I've got to fund a new chair somehow. And subscribe too as well. Once we hit 750k on this channel, I'll be resurrecting my knee like Easter weekend. Anyway, I've seen a lot of discourse on Twitter over the last couple of weeks. Of course, Twitter being the place where all the good discourse is, and it suggested that Kylian Mbappe cursed Real Madrid. Los Blancos, of course, were left battered and bruised by Osama bin Teta, falling to a 5-1 aggregate defeat to the Gunners in the Champions League. Declan Rice installed some free kick mod, Gabriel Martinelli got his Brazilian visa approved. Despite those pieces of brilliance, they were kind of outplayed generally. For a side that's well known for its remontadas and its comebacks of the highest order, including some of the most high-pressure, late dramatic scenarios you've ever seen in European football. Did you ever really think that Real Madrid were actually going to come back based on on-pitch activities? Yeah, marketing-wise, we thought it was going to happen because they always do it. But it didn't actually give us a reason to believe it when we were watching the football unfold. Because I'm telling you now, when I'm watching Lucas Vazquez playing, I'm not thinking a comeback's happening at all. He just didn't really seem like their inevitable European selves. David Alaba was playing like he was an estate agent. Carlo Ancelotti, maybe he's grown a monobrow now, so he can't lift just one of them. Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo couldn't really affect the game apart from the William Saliba mistake, but one man was very quiet indeed. Coincidentally, the man we're talking about in today's video.
Nah, I never knew that.
But just one thing Kylian Mbappe usually isn't, it's quiet. Bro's been on the scene for like a decade now at this point, bursting onto the scene Micah Richards style in his teenage years for Monaco, banging in goals, winning League Arm with the side and helping them beat Manchester City in the Champions League knockout stages. Back when his name was Mbappe Lotin, Kylian was making a splash early doors straight away. Everybody knew what he was going to become. He got his big move to French juggernaut Paris Saint-Germain, got 21 goal contributions in his first season, the 2017-18 campaign, then 42 goal contributions in 29 the campaign after, with his biggest achievement yet wedged in between. The France entered the World Cup of 2018 realistically as one of the favourites. Everybody knew that. There were stars like Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante, Raphael Varane and Antoine Griezmann, and youngsters just coming up, the likes of Ousmane Dembele, Nabil Fekir, aka me, and also, of course, Kylian Mbappe. Kylian and France would go on to slap the competition. I won't go into too many details, but they just looked like and were, objectively, the best team at the tournament. And Kylian Mbappe himself looked brilliant, scoring 4 goals in total, joint second out of anyone in the competition, including 1 in the final against Croatia, on his way to lifting a World Cup trophy in his teenage years still, and taking home the Young Player of the Tournament award. It was a game-changing moment, especially that final where he did perform so well, and it immediately brought him into all the biggest conversations. There and then, this wasn't just a wonder kid, this was like one of the elite players in the world already, despite his younger years. Kind of how people talk about Lamine Yamal at this point. Now, himself and Paris Saint-Germain would only go on to miss out on 1 League Arm title from this point moving forward, mostly because the rest of the league has a transfer budget that looks like Rasmus Højlund's 2025 goal bonuses. Meanwhile, Paris Saint-Germain spend the GDP of Uzbekistan every time they get to a summer transfer window. It can't really be overstated how much of a gulf in, well, financial power and just general ability there is between PSG and the rest of the French league these days, and how much there has been for the last decade. So it's kind of hard to measure, really, his actual domestic success, because it's basically, it just should be a given. What it did give us a chance to do, though, was compare him to some of the other best players in the world, because that's what PSG would go out and sign. Now, himself and Neymar had actually signed for PSG in the same transfer window. So they were almost brought in as joint main men, especially given the amount of money that was spent on both. 222 million euros for Neymar, 180 million euros after a season on loan from Mbappe. It was kind of accepted, I imagine, between both of them that they were both marquee signings, both the two-pronged attack to lead lead PSG to European glory. But then when Barcelona ran out of eBay accounts in which to sell Memphis Depay's used socks on, and they had to get rid of Lionel Messi, Barcelona would swoop in, and that, I feel like, is when the dynamic of the whole football club would change. By this point, Kylian and Neymar as well had both established themselves as the main men, and Lionel Messi arriving would have different impacts on them, I feel, mentally for different reasons. Neymar had lived in the shadow of Lionel Messi at Barcelona. Not fully, he'd been able to make a name for himself, but ultimately Barca fans always took a liking to Lionel more, and more attention was given to Lionel, A, because he was the better player, he was the best player in the world, arguably, with himself and Ronaldo at that point, but also he was a La Masia graduate. Arguably the reason Neymar left in the first place to go to PSG was to escape that shadow of Lionel, so when he then arrived, it kind of brought up fresh PTSD again. For Kylian, he's now starting to establish himself at a French club as a French footballer, and he wants to be the next generation of the best player in the world. So having the current generation of the best player arrive in the world is a little bit of a threatening move. And that's kind of how it then felt that it transpired. I mean, you look at the squad that they had on paper, they should have won multiple Champions Leagues. I mean, they should have at least won one with Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, and Neymar in the front three. That on paper is maybe one of the best front threes that's ever existed in football. You've got arguably the best player ever in football. You've got arguably the most skillful player ever in football, like behind a Ronaldinho or something. And you've got someone who could go on to be one of the best players ever, or certainly one of the best players in his generation. But it didn't work, and it did kind of just always feel a little bit like they were competing with each other. There were too many main men in a front three. To be a great footballer, you've got to have a little bit of ego, and I feel like that did clash just a little bit. Not to the degree where they all fell out, but just to the degree where there was no real cohesion between them. And it just felt like one massive missed opportunity for PSG. Now I want you to understand, by this point, Kylian Mbappe is flirting heavy with Real Madrid. He was like a bad bee in a posh nightclub that wanted a Jaeger bomb, bro. It's actually insane. For like 3 years straight. Him and Florentino Perez, lips in. That's not an image that anyone needs to think, actually. I'm sorry about that. I just hope nobody told PSG's Qatari owners about that part that was going on. It was like, I don't know if anyone remembers, yeah, like being in school, all right? And like, you know how in year 7 and X person fancies Y person, all right? But because your mate has never spoken to a female in his 11 years of life, he doesn't know how to express the early feelings that he has. So he makes you go and do it, or vice versa. This is what it was, but like in football club form. And it went on for about 3 or 4 years. And after Kylian Mbappe finally realized that a contract actually ends if you don't renew another one, he would sign for Real Madrid on a free transfer at the start of this season. Arguably the most expensive free transfer of all time, taking into account the signing on fee he was given and the wages that he's currently on. This was a true momentous occasion, all right? Yeah, we've got Jude Bellingham, we've got Vinny Jr., we've got Kylian Mbappe, and then defensively, we've got no one, but I'm sure that won't come back to hurt anyone. And things would start. They would start. I'm not saying they would start well for Kylian Mbappe. I'm just saying that they did start. Yeah, it was pretty average. He scored in the UEFA Super Cup, but I remember talking about it in FTW episodes, actually. It was kind of like, he scored a few goals, but like, I think his first 4 goals, 3 of them were pens or something like that, and 1 was a tap-in. Everyone was like, he's not really set the world alight. He's not looking like a Galactico yet after the first couple of months. I even made a video claiming that he was washed, given the poor form he started his Real Madrid career with. At the end of the day, he was struggling to adapt to life as being a central focal point. You see, himself, Vinny, and Rodrigo, they all do very similar things. Vinny likes to start life out on the left-hand side. He likes to play, obviously. He's a left winger out on the left-hand side and drift in on his lethal right foot. Rodrigo been doing a very similar thing since he was playing on the streets of Mumbai. And Mbappe had done that during his time at Gas Guzzlers Jaman. So given he was struggling a little bit, okay, a lot of pundits and, you know, even Carlo Ancelotti were telling him to, you know, just calm things down. Let's go back to basics. Unfortunately, he took that a little bit too literally, going back to the basics of football on the playground where there's no offside rule, as he set a La Liga record for getting called offside 8 times in one game as Real Madrid were peppered 4-0 by Barcelona. You know what, for what it's worth, I'm not going to get too stuck on how much he was struggling in the league, because from that point there was a bit of an uptick. Feels like there was a little bit of a reset. He scored some very good goals. His stats record doesn't look all that bad. Bro scored 22 and 29 in the league. It's not like the best Galactico ever, but it's respectable. level for a first season. It kind of goes along with the goal scoring that he was putting up in terms of numbers in Ligue 1. And he would also have 7 goals in the Champions League by the time the Kings of Cringe came to town. I'm realizing that could actually be used for either of the teams involved in this tie. It was the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinals, all right? And realistically, Kylian should have this in the bag. After all, Real Madrid win the Champions League all the time. They've got Kylian Mbappe in the squad now. They're only going up from here. It only went down from here. Declan Rice learnt how to take free kicks, turned round to Kylian Mbappe and said, hold that. Mikel Merino read what the job description of a striker actually was, and suddenly Real Madrid were 3-0 down in the first leg. More importantly as well, it was a game where Kylian had been absolutely pocketed by his fellow countryman William Saliba. It wasn't just like, yo, he performed kind of bad and Real Madrid were kind of unlucky to lose 3-0. No, they got shut down. Arsenal are good defensively. We all know that. They're arguably a little bit too good defensively. They got Gabriel, they got William Saliba. I love Jurien Timber. Miles Lewis-Skelly's a baller. Even with the injuries they've got, Ben White is solid. Calafiori's looked good when he's not been like mogging down on the substitutes bench. So it's like not a massive surprise, I guess, that he found it a little bit difficult in the first leg, especially at the Emirates. But now it's quarter to remontada, okay? It's time for Real Madrid to do something from an attacking sense. And the second leg would start off well for Kylian, because for Kylian, the offside rule doesn't apply, so this goal actually counts in his mind. Yeah, he was left frustrated again. Real Madrid lost 2-1 thanks to a late Gabriel Martinelli goal. I mean, it was gone by that point anyway. They were throwing bodies forward all over the gaff, and once again, Kylian wasn't really able to impact the tie. Now, that was obviously disastrous for Real Madrid. The Champions League is, at this point, almost their bread and butter. They'd also shown a little bit of that Los Blancos luck and grit and determination to somehow make it through previous ties, like against Atletico Madrid with the Julian Alvarez double touch pen. The truth of the matter is things aren't going well for Real, just generally speaking. They're 4 points behind Barcelona. Their fans, who are clearly loving a bit of pessimism, reckon they're already done in terms of the league. Barcelona are the better team. I think, to be honest, Barcelona have been better than them this season. They've scored a mountain of goals. They just look a little bit susceptible at the back. Real Madrid have still got a mountain of injuries that they're dealing with at the moment. The depression of getting knocked out of the Champions League may hinder them further. And if they are to, you know, be beaten in the league and are to be beaten in the Copa del Rey. Now, actually, since I've recorded this as well, Real Madrid have lost the Copa del Rey final to Barcelona. But it does now mean their only chance of silverware is La Liga. And if they don't end up toppling Barca in the league, it'll mean their first trophyless season since the 2020-21 campaign. And before that, 2009-10. So let's first of all talk about Kylian Mbappe and his role in all of this. And I think he would accept as well that maybe this season hasn't gone as well as it could have done. I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. It's a new league that he's never played in before. It's a new culture that he's never played in before. And ultimately, whilst things didn't start that well, from a numbers perspective alone, he has picked things up. I think you'd just maybe argue that Kylian Mbappe should be in a Ballon d'Or shout every year. Every year you should look at the Ballon d'Or ratings and go, and Mbappe's at least in the top 3, and that makes sense. Because of how good he's supposed to be and how good he's shown that he is. But nobody's going to be talking about him like that for 2025. We're not. Unless he has the most superhuman start to the next season, he's not going to be in that debate at all. We're talking about the likes of Mo Salah. We're talking about Lamine Yamal or Rafinha, especially if Yamal or Rafinha win the Champions League as well. Nobody is chatting about Mbappe, either because of his domestic campaign or because of how disappointing, I guess, Real Madrid have been in the Champions League. There's the fact that ultimately, as soon as he's joined Real Madrid, they've underachieved. You know, Real have made the Champions League look easy in the last decade. You know, they win it consistently. He's gone there, in essence, made a team better, and yet somehow they performed worse. And on the flip side, something I've not really talked about too much actually in this video is the fact that, like, PSG are better. Paris Saint-Germain look like potentially the best team left in the Champions League. I mean, I think it's very close between them, Arsenal and Barcelona, if I'm honest. I think all the teams actually really left in the Champions League are very, very strong. Inter as well. But I think PSG all round, and from an excitement perspective, even more so than Barcelona, have just this X factor about them. Kavica Kvaratskhelia is like a magician. Desiree Doué is like one of the most exciting players that I've watched in time. Ousmane Dembele's in crazy form. João Neves and Vitinha in midfield, a class. Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, two of the best wing-backs in world football right now. Yet, when they had Kylian Mbappe in the side, they not once won the Champions League. Imagine the storyline if he leaves and they immediately go on and break their duck. It's a young squad with a lot of identity now. Like, Paris Saint-Germain, it was weird. Like, PSG bought players so frequently and bought, like, these Galactico players, right? Kind of like what Real Madrid are doing now and what Real Madrid did in the mid-2000s with, like, David Beckham, Luis Luis Figo. But during that time, you didn't know what PSG was about. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just cool. These players are class. They bought them for loads of money. What do you get when you watch PSG? Like, what are you tuning in for? You're just tuning in to see Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar. So when they all left, it was like, oh, they're left with nothing. But Luis Enrique's actually done a really good job of crafting a side that looks like it has a good identity, has like youthful exuberance, and like you tune in and watch PSG now. It doesn't matter if Desiree Doué's starting or if Kavicha Kvaratskhelia is starting. You know you're going to be in for like a treat of a game. And that is identity, and I like that. I love that PSG have done that. Luis Enrique is such a good manager. Was good as Spain manager. I think he was runner-up in the Nations League as well. And with PSG, it kind of looked like he clashed with Kylian. You know, there's quite a few moments where he dropped Mbappe because he wasn't doing enough for the team. There's that clip where he's talking about his free kick ability as well. And I don't think that necessarily shows bad attitude. I think it definitely shows ego for Kylian Mbappe. But it is something that I find fascinating because it does make me wonder whether he was holding PSG back. Not on purpose, but like when you're PSG and you've got Kylian Mbappe, everything has to run through him. It's kind of like when Cristiano Ronaldo went back to Manchester United. I think a lot of the players around Ronaldo thought, hey, yo, we're playing with Ronaldo. I've got to pass the ball to Ronaldo. More time you don't. He doesn't want the ball. You don't actually have to do that. But it just feels like everything was to go through him, whereas now there's like a bit more of like equality at PSG. And as for Real Madrid, you still see that main man like attitude. Like, why is he taking free kicks? There is a Twitter account dedicated to the fact that he's never scored a free kick, and it's in like the thousands of days. We're talking a long time now, okay? Like, he shouldn't be on free kicks at this point. If Trent Alexander-Arnold goes there and he's still taking them, we've actually got to have like a diplomatic incident. And this is where I'm gonna, actually back him a little bit. In fairness to Kylian Mbappe, I think a lot of people have overlooked the actual state of this Real Madrid squad. Yes, from an attacking perspective, it's got better. You know, if you put Kylian Mbappe in any attack, the team gets better, all right? Like him, Rodrigo, Vinny Jr. are very good attackers in their own right. But as everybody pointed out at the start of the season, and like I've already said in this video, fam, they're the same player, pretty much. In terms of their characteristics and what they like to do, they like to drift in from the left-hand side and then use their right foot. All of them like to do that. So there's no balance. There's no balance in the front three. And more importantly than that, there's actually no balance at all in this squad as a whole. It's not Carlo Ancelotti's fault, but when you go into a season and you have one right back and it's Dani Carvajal, with the best one in the world, Carvajal's actually good. Like, he's a good, consistent performer, yeah. But if he gets injured, you're finished. And what did he do? He got injured. Eder Militao's knees are made of custard creams. Why are you reliant on him as a centre-back? It doesn't make any sense. Yes, they stumbled upon Raul Asensio this season and he's been decent, but he might go to jail soon. And then what have you got? Eder Militao and his 1.5 knees again. No actual thought was put into building a squad. It was just, yo, we're going to use all our money on Kylian Mbappe. And I get it. When Mbappe becomes available for free and he wants to join you, you've got to go for it. But I don't think you can then complain when, as soon as you get 2 injuries at the back, you fall apart because you've completely ignored it for like 3 years. An establishment like Real Madrid should not be playing Fede Valverde at right back. It doesn't make any sense. So I think, personally, my conclusion is that Kylian Mbappe is not cursed. I don't think he is. I think he's an amazing player, and some amazing players have a bit of an ego and want to be the main man. And that's fine to an extent, especially when you're at a club like Real Madrid, because there's actually a lot of other players that are very good in a lot of different areas. And that fan base doesn't care whether you're a main man or not. You have got to perform. So there's still pressure. He was very cozy and very chilled out, knowing that everyone would bow down to his every beck and call at PSG. But if he actually wants to be remembered as a Real Madrid legend and win things, he's actually got to do bits out on the pitch. At the end of the day, we know that Kylian Mbappe is still an amazing footballer based on what he's done for PSG and based on what he did at the World Cup in 2018. But he can't paper over the cracks of a squad that has no balance on his own. I think if Real Madrid invest in the rest of the squad a little bit in the summer and he's still underperforming, then maybe we need to have a serious conversation. Then again, if PSG win it the first season without him, then yeah, maybe he's cursed after all. But what do you guys make of it? What do you think about Real Madrid this season, and what do you think about Kylian Mbappe in the Champions League? Is he cursed, or is he going to win it with Los Blancos soon? If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to slap a like on it, subscribe if you're new. You can also follow me on social media. It is @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta and on TikTok as well. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.